Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Obviously, we have a big show. We have an exciting show. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to put my contact information up already because I'm sure you're going to want to weigh in on Trump's indictment. A little bit later on the program, we're going to be talking to Andrew Shades Dembski. He's the head of racing at Tioga Downs. We're going to talk about the Belmont tomorrow, which broadcast kicks off at 3 o'clock tomorrow right here on Big Fox. We're going to talk a little horse racing, so I know you're going to enjoy that. But let's get right into the main story of the day. Trump indicted on 7 charges, including under Espionage Act. This is a classified document case. Here's what we're looking at. And again, this is the way I understand it. This is what's being alleged, though I don't believe, last I knew his lawyer verified that these are the exact charges. I think it was ABC that first reported it. But first is retaining classified documents. That's the first charge. That statute carries a maximum sentence of 10 years and or a fine. You've got conspiring to obstruct justice. The statute carries a maximum sentence of 10 years and or a fine. Withholding a document or record. That could be a maximum sentence of 5 years and or a fine. Corruptly concealing a document or record. The charge carries one of the heftiest sentences. Trump could face a 20-year punishment and or a fine. I think we can assume that's and or a fine. Concealing a document in a federal investigation. The statute carries a maximum sentence of 20 years and or a fine. Scheme to conceal. If found to have been involved, the statute carries a maximum sentence of 5 years and or a fine. But if found to have been involved in domestic terrorism, the charge could land Trump an 8-year sentence. False statement and representation, that's a 5-year maximum sentence. Now, if he is convicted of all 7 charges, the ex-president could face a 75-year prison sentence. Now, needless to say, the former president weighed in on this indictment, and we're also going to take a look at what Republicans are saying, also what the sort of never Trump or the rhino they're sometimes called Republicans have to say about this. Obviously, it goes back to something we talked about yesterday, and I would love to hear from you on that, and we can take that off the screen. You get the point. And here, I'm going to put up my contact info. I'd love to hear your take on it. Does this actually benefit Trump in a kind of what you would normally say, not in a normal way? It would not benefit someone running for office, but in this case, it's something that the former president has talked about a lot, that there is the swamp that's after him, the deep state that's after him. You look at the timing of some of these things, and it does play into that narrative. And when I say narrative, that's not slanted. It plays it at face value. There's a lot of questionable things about that. We're going to talk about it in just a moment. We'll take that off the screen. You can weigh in at any point. Before we take a break, I'm going to tell you exactly what the president had to say here. He was on Truth Social, and he said, page 1, the corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I've been indicted, seemingly over the boxes hoax, even though Joe Biden has 1,850 boxes at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown, D.C., with even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, and documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks his Corvette, and which is, quote, secured by only a garage door that is paper thin and open much of the time. Paper thin. Page 2. I'm not overly familiar with social, so they must not allow all the text that you want. So this is page 2. I've been summoned to appear at the federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday at 3 p.m. I never thought it possible that such a thing could happen to a former president of the United States who received far more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country and is currently leading by far all candidates, both Democrat and Republican, in polls of the 2024 presidential election. And then in all caps, which is kind of interesting that this is the first time he used all caps. I am an innocent man. And finally, page 3 of the former President Donald Trump's reaction to the indictment. This is indeed a dark day for the United States of America. We are a country in serious and rapid decline, but together we will make America great again. So those are the comments from the former president about the charges that he could be facing in the indictment. We're going to take a look at what his attorney had to say. We're also going to take a look at, as I mentioned, what some of the Republicans that are both pro-Trump and anti-Trump had to say. Hopefully we have time for other topics as well. And just a little bit, we'll be talking with Andrew Shades Dembski from Tioga Downs. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. We're just getting started. Stay right there. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We're talking about the former commander-in-chief being indicted by a federal grand jury just yesterday. I'm sure you've already heard a little bit about it. This on criminal charges related to the mishandling of those documents. His attorney, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Alina Habba, I've only read it. Alina Habba was on Fox News saying, for the president to be indicted for something that every president, every other non-president, including vice presidents, have done, shows what a sick world we are living in. She also said she felt petrified for the nation and sad for her client. Although he is resilient and strong, it just tells me once again that we need him back in the White House. This coming from Trump's attorney. This is a very sad state of affairs for this country, she continued. There's a two-tier system of justice that we are seeing right now. Hillary Clinton smashed a computer, got rid of emails. We had recordings in sock drawers. We have Biden and Obama who are hiding things. Biden still has things in Chinatown, in his home, with his son who's a drug addict. Nothing happens to these people. So when your name is Donald Trump, when you're leading in the polls, you're going to get hit hard. You're going to get indicted until you can't take it anymore. But they picked the wrong guy. So again, okay, we have just enough time to mention a spokesperson for Make America Great Again, Inc., which of course is campaign wing of the president's comments. But this is very interesting because you can see what former President Trump had said in the past about the deep state and the swamp, and how this again fits that, and I say narrative, that's not slanted, but it fits that narrative. So what do you think about this indictment? We have the previous indictment, so this is the second indictment of a former president, and it's interesting to see the media's coverage because there is a sort of a giddiness in the media, and again, I don't know if that's premature, if this doesn't actually play into the campaign side of things for the former president. Because if you, and I think it was former Congressman Joe Sempolinski who was on the program just last week saying, you know, there's a lot of people that may not like Trump, but they really, really don't like the deep state. And does this look like the deep state? Does this look like the swamp? So that's the question I ask you. That's why I put my contact information up. Before we go to break, Carolyn Levitt, a spokeswoman for Make America Great Inc., or Make America Great Again Inc., said the Biden regime, which is realizing they can't beat or cheat their way to another victory, has taken the unprecedented step to indict President Trump. This comes amid supports that the Biden family accepted $10 million in illegal bribes from foreign nationals. And isn't it interesting this indictment comes out on the same day that they're finally supposed to, some members of Congress were finally allowed to read some quote-unquote classified documents regarding that case, but I'll continue. America is a nation that has become plagued by a two-tier system of justice. I think that's going to come up a lot, that term, two-tier system, that must be confronted and destroyed. This will only be done when we re-elect President Donald J. Trump in 2024. So that is coming from a spokeswoman for Make America Great Again, Inc., and I do want to highlight that in a little bit after our interview with Andrew Shades Dembski. We're going to be talking about the other side. I'm not just giving you I think it's only fair to give the former president his words out there and some of his spokespeople. We're going to take a look at what some Republicans that support him, some that don't, what they had to say, maybe even if we have time hear from his opponent, his closest opponent, Governor DeSantis. So that's when we come back. But no, actually when we come back, it's Andrew Shades Dembski from Tioga Downs. Not just Tioga Downs. He's the head of racing at Tioga Downs, Vernon Downs, and Meadowlands. So we're going to talk to him about all the coverage of the Belmont tomorrow, beginning at 3 right here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. So stay with us. That's coming up after the break. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and we are being joined by the head of racing at Tioga Downs, Andrew Shades Dembski. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, most people call me Shades.
Shades. So I'm just going to call you Shades. I should have put that on the Chiron at the bottom. How's the season at Tioga Downs going so far?
It's actually been kind of a surprise to us. We actually have a lot more horses than anticipated.
That's great.
Yeah, so we've had a lot more races, which is always good for the horse players, give you longer nights, more betting opportunities. So that was kind of a surprise, but we've been filling our race cards, so race cards. This weekend, 12, 13, 14 races, so should be nice.
And what's it like for those that want to watch the Belmont, which will be on Big Fox starting at 3? The coverage starts at 3. That's a long day of race coverage, I thought.
Yeah, I think they have 13 races at Belmont Park that day. The
Yeah.
Belmont Stakes is the 12th race. That's a great day anytime.
Yeah.
I grew up going to Belmont Park. I'm from Long Island.
Oh,
so
did you really?
That was kind of my home track for
Yeah.
a long time. Belmont's a unique experience. Belmont has their backyard, which is really nice. Their walking range is really nice. I mean, there's people who go to Belmont Park and don't watch a live race. They hang out in the backyard the whole time. I mean, when you compare Belmont to us at Tioga,
Sure.
I mean, Belmont, it's a mile and a half track, right? So
Right.
you really only see like the stretch, part of it,
Yes.
which is, the difference to harness racing in general. Most racetracks are, smaller tracks. We're 5/8, so all the action's right in front of you. You see
Yeah.
the whole thing.
It's
So
beautiful.
As much as I love thoroughbred racing, I worked in that for a long time. I love harness racing too because you're right on top of the action.
It's all action. So what's it like at the track at Tioga Downs on Belmont? People come, they want to bet on Belmont because you can bet
we're
it there.
expecting a pretty good crowd. With no Triple Crown on the line, that kind of that diminishes the crowd a little bit. But it really should be a great race. I mean, the Belmont Stakes in general, you have the Tampa Bay Downs, Tampa Bay Derby winner, Tapit Trice. I worked at Tampa for a long time, so I'm on that horse. But Angel of Empire, who wound up the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. You have Forte in the Belmont, who was scratched from the Derby,
Right.
but would have been the race favorite. So, I mean, those three are the big names coming into the Belmont.
Sure. When was it that you realized that you wanted to get into this horse racing culture, if you will?
Yeah, I kind of grew up playing the races. I was always a horse racing fan. I wound up working in baseball for a while. Then I said, let me take a shot in racing. And I always did video production and TV work. So I wound up I was a technical director at a racetrack.
Okay.
Wound up filling in as their on-camera, person.
Yeah.
And then I was offered that position at the end of that season. So I've kind of been in front of the camera ever since.
I'm the same as you. I've been following horse racing my whole life, and there's something so special about being at a track. And Tioga Downs is amazing. You work at Vernon too, a beautiful view. There's something about a night at the races that you really can't, nothing can compete.
I tell people all the time, I mean, compared to other entertainment, you could bring $20 to a racetrack. Yeah. You're going to have roughly 4 hours entertainment, and you might make money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you really can't beat that.
It's not bad. And there's something about the atmosphere as well. How's it different working at each of those tracks? How do you separate your time?
I'm mostly at Tioga because I'm also the announcer at Tioga. Okay. So I try to stay mostly at Tioga. When they have big days at Vernon, I try to get up there too. But Tioga, I would say between Tioga and Vernon, we probably do more promotions than any racetrack I've ever worked at or ever really been to. I mean, you come to a Sunday at Tioga, you have a horse and a baby foal at one end of the apron, so you can go meet a baby horse. We have the water slide, bounce houses, dollar food specials. We play games between the races with fans where they can win prizes. So we try to, and we usually have an overarching larger promotion anyway. So there's always fun, at Tioga, more so than promotions-wise, any other racetrack I can even think of.
I agree. So you mentioned that you call the races. Many years ago, they let me call a race there just for fun to promote.
Frank, anytime you want to come and call a race, give me some time off. You're welcome.
I did it once, and I failed miserably. The moment I wanted to say the worst the whole time from all my times at the track is right at the end, say, hold all tickets till official.
Yeah,
I love that part.
You do, yeah. Everyone has like their own sayings. I say something very similar, but yeah, you got to hold all tickets till it's made official. Especially if we have an inquiry or something. That's always fun.
Sure.
You get to watch the replay on the screen for a while. It's kind of watching the judges are seeing. So it's always a good time. Calling races. I mean, I enjoy it. I try to have fun with it. Sure. Especially when you have. It's actually funny when you talk about calling races. How many horses do you remember were there in the race you called or tried calling?
I don't. I want to try. Thank you. Thank you. I would say I want to say 8 maybe.
8. Yeah. I mean, it's actually easier to call large fields fields than smaller fields because there's always action.
Yeah.
If you have like 9 horses, there's something always happening. When you have like 5 or 6 horses, that's where I kind of have more fun with it.
Yeah.
You know, I try to throw in if there's a horse that has a name of a song or something. You know, I try to throw in those references to the races. I'm a big Mets fan. I throw in the Mets score to half the races when the Mets are playing. So
Okay,
just because you
perfect.
have that kind of time in those short
Yeah.
fields where you get to fill it with a little bit more fun. Sometimes I pitch the promotion going on tonight. Don't forget to stop by the promotions table
Sure.
for so and so as they head onto the backstretch. You know, so you can kind of have a little bit of fun with those smaller fields.
So how much research goes in before you start calling the race at night? You must study so you have those references in mind, don't you?
Yeah, I take a peek at the program, but it's funny when you call a race. When I first started calling a couple of thoroughbred races,
Yeah.
and I enjoy calling both. You know, I came from thoroughbred racing into the harness world. But the biggest mistake I think a lot of people might try to make, might make, is people try to memorize all the horses, and if you try to memorize, whatever it is, let's say you have 90 horses on the night,
Yeah.
You're going to fall apart like
Yeah.
the second the race starts. So you can't really memorize them. You kind of have to, know the top competitors in the field, the top horses that are probably going to be on the front. And then the rest of them, I peek at my little sheet all day. You know
No,
what I mean?
I
You have
love
to,
it.
because
Yeah.
if you memorize them, it's just the second the race starts.
How do you,
no.
how do you
brain
get the
freeze.
names too sometimes? That must be the toughest part.
The hardest part with horse names is the ones that are always, 3 words that are put together.
Yeah,
That's always a
I know,
challenge, because
I
if you don't memorize that one, yeah, your brain might freeze up when you're trying to, take a peek and read it. Oh no! And then you have that momentary pause, that dead air for like less than a second, but in your mind,
Seems forever.
Right?
That's why I was so bad at it.
yeah, it's just when you pause for a little bit, no one notices.
No.
You know what I mean? I joke with people. I say I'm the king of the dramatic pause. I take these pauses, right? So, but no one really notices, but you do. And
Oh,
if you
yeah.
start freezing up when you're
Then
on the
you're
live
thinking
mic,
about it.
yeah,
That's all you-
it's a problem. But I've been calling. This is my 4th year calling races here. So
Wow! Congratulations. That's great.
thanks. Yeah, have fun with it.
I found it difficult to use the binoculars to watch because I wasn't used to it.
Right.
So I catch myself just looking over the binoculars or looking at the big screen to see what they had on.
Well, if I had any advice for somebody,
Yeah.
get used to using them for one.
Yeah.
There's some people who don't use them. People try to peek at a TV screen sometimes to help them out. I never do. I've gotten pretty good at using them, but the key I think to calling races is finding those little breaks where you can take a break, where you can fill with other lines
Sure.
while you're checking out the field and getting the names to yourself. Because like if the horse are heading to the backstretch, maybe you say the horse are heading up the backstretch and settling for their journey, toward whatever. That one sentence gives you a break where you can take a peek at the names and start
look at
reading
what's-
again.
yeah,
so
that's smart.
You kind of have to fill. And what's funny is a lot of times watching races now, having called races for 3 years, I'm on my 4th season here. When I watch other horse races, you pick up announcers like, oh, he can't see the horse. He's fielding right now.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
can pick, oh no, he
Yeah.
doesn't know what's happening. He can't see it. He doesn't know who's, you kind of see it and you hear them. Oh no, that's a filler line.
That's interesting because in radio, when I was in radio, we used to call them crutch words, like words that you use over and
That's a
over
great
again.
phrase for
But
it, yeah.
and you really had to break. And I still do it with TV. I watch the shows again because you don't want to keep using that same term.
Right.
So you always want to keep it fresh.
And I bet you catch it too, and you can tell somebody's filling. Oh no,
Oh,
that's a crutch word.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah.
You actually like zone in on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you've been with Thoroughbred and your harness. What's the difference for you? Is there? I mean, obviously, other than the
Yeah, I mean,
obvious,
I
but-
enjoy both, really. I mean, the biggest thing to me, like most harness tracks, like I kind of said about Tioga, I love the fact that not that they're more family oriented, but
Right.
just being a smaller environment, you have so many harness tracks that are half-mile tracks. I mean, you don't need binoculars. Most of those announcers don't use binoculars because you don't need it. You're right on top of the action. At 5/8, I do use binoculars, just short lenses, but it does help me a little bit. But I think, harness racing, just being a smaller environment, it's a good place to really learn the races, And then once you learn that standardbred program, you'll easily learn how to read, past performances on a thoroughbred program. They're very similar. But I think learning, standardbred, it's just, not that it's slower necessarily. It really isn't that much slower, it turns out. People think it is. It's not really.
Right.
We're talking about horses going 35 miles an hour versus 38 miles an hour. It's pretty much the same thing. But I do like the smaller environment where you get to, get right on top of the horses. I think standardbred tracks for the most part, I'm not, having been around thoroughbred, drivers are great, trainers are great. There's horsemen on the apron. You can get to know them, talk to a trainer who's watching his horse race. They'll happily, help you out. People are really good at teaching people and teaching newcomers and very open to it because we want to grow the game.
Right.
All horse racing struggles, with everything now. There's so much competition.
Oh, there is.
In sports gambling and whatnot. But, people are so willing to teach new people. And we have trainers who are going to come, like tomorrow night, for instance, we have trainers who are teaching a bunch of firefighters about the game.
Oh, isn't that great?
But no one really asked them to do it. They want to do it. So we have a lot of good, personalities, a lot of good people in the game.
And you mentioned the struggling because it's interesting that you have full race cards or close to full race cards, because I was looking at some of the apps and things like that as you do before the Belmont, and there's it seems like a lot of tracks are struggling to even get horses.
Yeah, that's horse population's been a big problem in the game, both thoroughbred and standardbred for a long time. Our purses are up this year, which is kind of nice, which does incentivize horsemen to send their horses to Tioga, which certainly helps us fill the cards. So we're kind of fortunate to have a pretty decent purse structure right now.
Yeah. Do you mind staying with us through the break?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and we're being joined by Shades. I like that. Got Shades. He is the head of racing at Tioga Downs. When you are out traveling, maybe on vacation, do you try to see other tracks?
I used to base every vacation on
you
a
really?
racetrack. You know what I mean? It's what racetracks in that area. I remember I had to go to a friend's wedding in Texas, and I was in Wyoming at the time, and I tried to see how many racetracks I could hit on the way down. So I hit like 2 on the, you know what I mean? That was kind of how I planned my route. So yeah, I always try to hit racetracks when I travel.
Isn't that interesting? How do you keep the passion? You obviously have the passion in your voice for horse racing. How do you keep that? Any job can get old after a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I've held over 20 jobs in my life. So I've been traveling. I worked in baseball, just constantly traveling. And this is 2013 was my first year, so we're 10 years now in horse racing. So, I think I just really enjoy it. I like the people. They are good people. That's just the truth.
It is.
And I appreciate, the truth is, when I worked in baseball, for instance, the players work for the team, right? So you say, hey, we need you to do a meet and greet. They have to do it. Here, they don't have to, but they still do, which is great to me. We have really good people. As I told you, I come from kind of marketing and video production. So I've made several just silly videos, promotional videos with drivers that are just willing to do it. That's their own time, but that's the truth. We're trying to grow the game. So we do just have good people in this industry, and that's probably what keeps me in it.
And you're right, to try to grow the game. And you mentioned it earlier in the first segment, but I couldn't agree more where if you go to the track, it can be intimidating for people, right? I don't feel like it is intimidating if you actually go, and if you went to the mutual window or you went and talked to somebody who was out with their racing form, they're most likely going to talk to you. They might not give you all the tips that they're going to bat, but they'll talk to you.
Yeah, we're really kind of lucky. We have a really good staff, and our tellers are really good in that they do get a lot of questions. We have a lot of beginners, first-time horse players, which is what you want. You want to grow the game, and they're incredibly patient with you. They will help explain the bets to you.
Oh yeah.
The betting language,
it's intimidating. That's why I wanted to ask you. What tip would you give to someone that's maybe they're watching the Belmont? Coverage starts at 3 on YDC. What would you say to them if they're thinking of going to the track and maybe placing a few bets?
Yeah, I tell every beginner horse player the best way, first time at the racetrack, learn a win-place bet. It's 2 separate bets, but it's a win-place bet basically. Pick one horse. Bet $5 win-place will cost you $10 for the race.
Right.
And if the horse at least comes in second, you'll probably get your money back. You might even still turn a profit.
Right.
So realistically, I kind of focus new players on win-place bets, because when you start getting into the exotics, whether they're vertical or horizontal wagers, pick 3s, pick 4s, exactas, trifecta, super, they're hard to connect.
Sure.
Especially for a newcomer. If you want to bet your birthday or something cool, go for it. Maybe you'll get lucky. But a win-place bet is probably the best way to for first-time players. I don't really encourage show betting as much. A lot of people like show betting because if the horse comes in third, you're going to cash a ticket, but generally you're going to cash a $1 profit. You know what I mean? Some people will get excited to win. They find out, I only won $1. So at least a win bet, you'll get the true odds.
Now, before the race at Belmont, how do you study? What do you look for in a horse?
Yeah, I mean, the Belmont is the biggest guess in handicapping because it's a mile and a half. These horses are going to race a mile and a half in this race and probably never again.
Right.
So a lot of people focus on breeding. I kind of look at horses a lot of times. You got to look at the race shape, right? So the Belmont, for instance, you want to look for, there is some speed in the Belmont. A lot of years, and you'll see it. You've seen it in the past if you research it. You see the horse that goes to the front very often might win the race because what happens is horses just kind of, they get lazy and they kind of fall into that one pace. They're kind of those plotter types of horses that in a race like that where you have, if you are the lone speed, the only horse that wants to go to the front and you don't face pressure, a lot of times you can run all day, So you kind of got to look at race shape and see how much speed's in the race. I don't know how much speed's in the race. The horse I'm going to wind up on is Tapit Trice. Tapit Trice is the 2 horse. That's the Tampa Bay Derby winner. Finished, I think 7th or 8th in the Derby. But he's a horse that comes from way out of it. Now, when you have a horse that comes from way out of it and doesn't really show that early speed, you need a lot of things to go right.
Right.
So you need the right pace scenario. You need there to be you need them to go a little too fast up front, and you need them to kind of knock heads up front too, because you don't want that lone speed. Because lone speed, like I said, might just last all day, no pressure. So you kind of need a few horses to knock heads. Then you need to have the right, you need to get through, right? You can't have traffic problems if you're a closer. So if you go too wide, you lose ground, which is hard. So you kind of want to find, you just need the right trip. A lot of times it's a trip race. So I'm hoping Tapit Trice gets through and has the right scenario. He's probably going to be the second or third choice in the race.
Okay.
It won't be a big price. I wouldn't be surprised if he's, 3-4 to 1. But 4 to 1's a $10 horse, so that's okay. If I bet $2 and get $10 back, I'll be pretty happy.
And if you look at the odds of the Preakness, there weren't really any odds in the Preakness either.
Yeah, well, the Preakness was kind of a short field this year.
Yeah.
And that's shorter fields kind of lend themselves to lower prices. Just in general, but we're kind of fortunate, like at Tioga, for instance, like this weekend, almost every race is 8 or 9 horses, which leads to a lot of opportunities, especially if you are an exotic player, right? If you're betting in exacta and you catch even a second choice over like a 5th choice, you probably make $30-40. You know, that's pretty good for $2.
What do you think it is about Forte? A lot of people talking about Forte. Is it the unknown because of the Derby?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of interesting, right? Like a lot of times people have a hard time betting a horse off an injury by a veterinarian, right? What was the issue there? My belief, and I kind of have the faith in the general goodness of people, that most, especially in today's day and age, with so much scrutiny on horse racing, a trainer would not send a horse out there if they weren't sound and they weren't ready to run. Okay, if they had any issues, especially today, they scratch their horses. So the fact that Forte's going, I'm assuming the injuries, he's okay and he'll be ready to run. He'll probably be the favorite. It won't shock me.
That's what I wonder. Yeah,
I think he will be the favorite. I don't know. It's the best horses, the best trainers, the best jockeys. So people say, "Oh, I bet the jockey." Well, guess what? They're all the best. You know what I mean? This is the best in the world. Exactly. So at this point, especially in a 1.5 mile race, it's kind of a toss-up. But have fun with it. If you want to bet an exacta, throw a long shot in. Anything could happen in a 1.5 mile event.
I'm going with Hit Show just because of this show right now.
Because of your Hit Show.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I like that. Yeah, Hit Show.
And I do want to highlight,
big price,
the Belmont is on Big Fox starting at 3. But most people do watch the races because of the Triple Crown. But what we've talked about already, this is going to be a fun race from beginning to end.
Yeah, this should be a pretty good event. I mean, I look forward to the Belmont every year because I grew up, going to Belmont Park, so I don't miss the Belmont Stakes. And honestly, I'm expecting great coverage on Fox. Generally, horse racing coverage is really solid. Like, we have a lot of good personalities in this game, and we're kind of lucky to have those really good analysts and good TV personalities. So it should be a fun show. I mean, I'll be tuning in for sure.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a good day at Tioga Downs as well. People can get there early. What are some upcoming events you have coming to Tioga? Because like you mentioned earlier, it seems like there's something every day.
We always do a lot of promotions. Right now on Saturday, so this Saturday you can qualify to win a trip to the Hambletonian in East Rutherford, New Jersey at the Meadowlands. I work there in the winter, so might see me in the winter, but not in the summer. I'll be here, unfortunately. I won't be at the big race. But you can win a trip to the Hambletonian, qualify for that on Saturdays in June. Coming up next weekend on the 17th, we have the SureTemp whole home air conditioner giveaway. We're giving away 2 whole home air conditioning systems valued at $5,000 each. That includes installation. So you can win one of those 2 just by coming out to the races. The following day, Father's Day, on the 18th, we're giving away a Blackstone griddle valued at $500. And we're also having the running of the Bulldogs. We're having Bulldog races, which is something I did at another racetrack I worked at in the past. And I said, a lot of tracks do the Wiener Dogs, and we're doing those as well. We're doing those on Labor Day.
Sure.
But we did the Bulldogs at one racetrack I worked at. I said, let's bring it here. And they don't always go straight. They don't run. They're a little chubby, which makes it more, all more adorable. So I'm looking forward to that. I think
do you handicap that? Do you
I'll be calling it.
Okay.
Side bets encouraged. No wagering on the event, but side bets encouraged. No, I will be calling that race, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. So people should probably just go to TiogaDowns.com to find out more.
Yeah, all our promotions. Yeah, they're all there. I mean, July, we got some great promotions coming up. We got our lawn care giveaway July 1st. We're giving away 10 lawn care items. I think it's like 4 lawnmowers, 2 leaf blowers, shop vacs. It's also National Creative Ice Cream Flavor Day.
Okay.
So we'll be serving up some ice cream on that day as well, which is free with the purchase of the program. So.
And I've got to stress, because you mentioned Father's Day, you mentioned the ice cream, in the Bulldogs, it is such a family-friendly atmosphere at Tioga Downs.
Yeah, it's something different. I really like what we've created there.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what attracted me to Tioga Downs, to be honest.
Sure.
I was kind of fortunate where I was in the, kind of bouncing between a few racetracks where I had a few opportunities, and I settled here. I just bought a home here. I love it here. So
that's great.
I hope to make the local public like it too.
That's great. Shades, thanks so much for being on the show, and best of luck tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks. I might need a little bit.
Yeah, all right. This has been Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We'll be right back. speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. There you go. There's the horses and the odds, and I want to thank Andrew Shades Dembski, the head of racing at Tioga Downs, Vernon Downs, and the Meadowlands, for being on the program, giving us a little look and decide who he's going to be picking tomorrow. Coverage begins right here on Big Fox at 3. That's going to be a good day of coverage. So hopefully, and yes, I know there are some speculation that because of the smoke, it could be postponed. I think there's a certain number, 500, that they're looking at. So you'll just have to stay tuned for that. But hopefully, I know I'm looking forward to it with coverage beginning at 3. And during the break, someone had reached out, or during the interview, I should say, someone had reached out and said, mentioned the song Beetle Bomb. And as the person that watched the program said, most today have probably never even heard it. I remember Spike Jones did Beetle Bomb, and it was played on my radio show every year around this time for the Triple Crown. I would play it on a regular basis as our intro music because it's such a classic. So thank you for that. Speaking of, and I'll take that off the screen, you've got your odds now. I also received this. We were talking about the indictment of former President Trump, and this is what a viewer wrote. The swamp is evil. Excuse me. The swamp is evil, maliciously messing with former President Trump and wanting to ignore the Constitution to their benefit. You can always contact. We're trying to give not both sides, but just discuss what's going on with the indictment and really look at what some Republican leaders had to say about it. Of course, we talked earlier about what the former president had to say about it, and then we're going to hear a little bit from some of the more never Trump type people. So I'd love to have you let me know what your thoughts on the issue are. This would be the president's second indictment since leaving office. Kevin McCarthy, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, came to the former president's defense yesterday, saying, "Today is indeed a dark day for the United States of America." This is Speaker McCarthy. He said Joe Biden kept classified documents for decades. He added that Republicans would investigate the matter, writing, quote, "I and every American who believes in the rule of law stand with President Trump against this grave injustice. House Republicans will hold this brazen weaponization of power accountable." And that is going to be something you hear more and more, weaponization. You hear two-tier justice, weaponization. Is this a way, according to many that are Trump supporters, this is a way to keep him down, to keep him from getting the White House, because the Biden administration, rightfully so, concerned with their polling numbers. It goes without saying that you would not be happy with that approval rating and what the polls are showing when Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who they've painted as a fringe wacko, is polling at 20. That's a bad sign for the White House. And we have to take another short break. But when we come back, Elise Stefanik weighed in on it. We're also going to talk about some of the other people that had their opinions that they wanted to have heard. So that's when we come back. Stay with us. Another short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, I'm your host, Frank Acom. Hey, it's not good when you screw up your own name. I'm thinking of too many things we have to get to because we're running out of time. I do want to highlight that I was just texting with our Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. He will be on the show most likely at some point next week to talk about the end of session. I know there's a lot we could cover there today, but unfortunately we got the news that the former president has been indicted. Representative Elise Stefanik said the exact same day, I think this is an interesting point, the exact same day that the FBI is forced to turn over to Congress absolutely damning and credible allegations regarding Joe Biden's illegal, erroneous, and treasonous corruption, Joe Biden weaponizes his Department of Justice to indict Donald Trump. The American people are smart and understand this is the epitome of the illegal and unprecedented weaponization of the federal government against Joe Biden's leading opponent, Donald J. Trump. The radical far left will stop at nothing to interfere with the 2024 election in order to prop up the catastrophic presidency and desperate campaign of Joe Biden. I'm committed to ending the corrupt political weaponization of our federal government, cutting out the rot in these agencies, and holding government officials accountable for their endless illegal witch hunts against President Trump. In 2024, We will vote like this country has never seen before, and we will elect President Trump back to the White House to save America. So that's Representative Elise Stefanik weighing in on that. Witch hunt, that's a word I didn't use earlier, but that the president uses quite frequently. Does this fit the narrative is a question I've been asking all morning. Does this fit the narrative that there's been a witch hunt on a regular basis against the president? Yesterday we had the quote that he had said things, highlighted some of the ways that the 2 times impeachment, the Russia hoax, etc. So does the timing of this, much like the first indictments, the timing when he is leading in the polls and what the time frame will be as he's going through indictment in 2 different cases in primary season, most likely, what does that mean for a campaign? Some are saying, on the kind of the more never Trump side, well, this is going to be such a distraction he should step down. Okay. You have Charlie Kirk on the other side of that. I don't know if you saw that. Well, in a show, I'm paraphrasing, in a show of solidarity, all the other candidates should drop out and just give Trump the nod. I don't think either of those scenarios are going to play out. J.D. Vance, the Ohio senator, said this was a moral and constitutional joke, calling Merrick Garland, the attorney general, a disgrace, and asserting that President Biden is using the justice system to preemptively steal the 2024 election. And that is another talking point we've been hearing quite frequently. Ron DeSantis, Trump's leading opponent in the primary, still off by, I want to say, about 30 percentage points. And that's something that's very interesting about this. Normally, this kind of news coverage for a candidate would not be something that you could ever look at as a positive. But I believe there are some Trump supporters this morning that do see it as a positive because it, again, to them shows that this is a witch hunt, that they have weaponized the Department of Justice against the former president. DeSantis discussed the moral threat to a free society that the weaponization of federal law enforcement represents. We have for years witnessed an uneven application of the law depending upon political affiliation. This is coming from Ron DeSantis, and I would agree with that. I would agree that it does depend on your political affiliation in many instances. He said, why so zealous in pursuing Trump, yet so passive about Hillary or Hunter? Yeah, I mean, Hunter's went under the radar for how many years? Imagine if you had done any one of these numerous things that he has been accused of. You would not be free to fly around with your father or vacation and all the things we've seen, or sell artwork in galleries to people that they will not disclose that purchase them. So the DeSantis administration will bring accountability to the DOJ, excise political bias, and end weaponization once and for all. So that is former President Trump's leading opponent in the primary, though still about 30 points off, I think last that I heard, 20, 30 points, but weighing in on these charges. So let's take another short break, and then we're going to wrap up. I'm going to tell you what the other side have to say, the never Trump wing of the Republican Party. When we come back, this is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. So like promised, here are what kind of never Trump, if you want to call them that. Some call them rhinos. They, I think, made the premature celebratory messaging that plays again, I keep using the term narrative, but plays again into this deep state, the swamp is out to get you. I would also argue that many of these people that are weighing in have been historically wrong about nearly every political thing that they've guaranteed. You know, the Bill Kristols of the world, who got every prediction about Trump's election wrong, even saying that he'd be out before Iowa. This, of course, not this upcoming season, the original presidential race. Okay, here we go. Michael Steele, the former RNC chair, said, remember, he is in this position because of his own actions. There was no witch hunt. A federal judge ruled there was probable cause. Trump committed a crime. He owns this. And, man, this is somebody that I don't even like to mention or give any kind of credence to, but George Conway, what he put his family through, what he would say about his wife, and just because of his immense hatred for the former president. To me, it was, well, very scummy. I guess you could say. And, of course, just to show his normal smugness and arrogance, "'Twas indeed the night before Christmas for the rule of law last night." So he's celebrating this, considering this, no matter what message this sends to our enemies, to our adversaries, what message this sends to the shape of the country as a whole, he sees that as Christmas morning. The blindness that people get when it comes to politics and the people they deem their enemies is troubling. And that's on both sides, trust me. Today, justice is being served. This is Adam Kinzinger, who's been very outspoken about his dislike of Trump. Today, justice is being served. Nobody is above the law. The former president will get a fair trial. Sure, the former president will be held accountable. And then, adding on to it, a partisan hack would be saying that this was a witch hunt and a bad thing for America. Trump is uniquely corrupt, lost, sad, weak man. Adam Kinzinger talking about partisan hacks. Not a lot of self-awareness sometimes with these people. We got to take a short break. We're going to wrap up on some other stories unrelated to that. And I've got a couple things to highlight coming up this weekend that I think you're going to want to hear. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Thanks again for joining us on this fast-paced edition of Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Okay, so last couple of quick stories before I highlight what's a couple things going on this weekend. This did end up happening. New York lawmakers passed a bill that considers reparations for slavery. We mentioned yesterday or the day before on the program about really, as you saw in California, this just divides people further. Even very liberal Governor Gavin Newsom saying that they could not pay the amount in reparations, basically dismissing, what was it, like $800 billion or something crazy like that. So New York would create a commission to consider reparations to address the lingering negative effects of slavery under a bill passed by the state legislature. Now, yesterday we had a viewer, and it was towards the end of the show and I didn't have a chance to mention it, but kind of echoing what Bob McManus from the New York Post had to say about this, which is 50,000 New Yorkers died fighting slavery. Is that not reparations? You can find that piece for yourself at the New York Post. We just don't have time to get to it, unfortunately. A couple last things. Social conservatism in the U.S. is highest in about a decade. And here's some international, I'm not going to say failures, but some troubling things to watch and how the Biden administration will handle it. Saudi Crown Prince has threatened major economic pain on the U.S. amid their oil feud, saying that they will no longer deal with the U.S. administration any longer. U.S. drug shortages highlight dependence on China. We talked about the supply chains in the past. It's a lot of power they have. China, we know what they're doing. They're flexing. And finally, Cuba gives China permission to build spying facility on the island. Yes, to spy on the United States. We've talked about the real threat of China and their want to be a superpower. Okay, couple things, couple quick announcements. Please don't miss this. This is coming up tomorrow. It's a spaghetti dinner fundraiser for Holy Family Elementary. It's at the Hibernian Center. That's on the corner of Miller and Kenyon Streets. It's tomorrow, 4 to 7 p.m. Adults, listen to this steal. Adults, just $10. Children, 6th grade and under, just $5 each. This gets you spaghetti, meatballs, salad, and garlic bread. And they're going to have assorted desserts, just $1 each, and a cash bar available. And get this, silent auctions and raffles too, which is always a lot of fun. Please help out a great cause with Holy Family Elementary and support that and get a great meal for cheap. Okay, we are out of time. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Thank you to Andrew Shades Dembski, the head of racing at Tioga Downs. Make sure to tune in tomorrow to Big Fox starting at 3 for all the Belmont coverage. I know I'm excited, and I bet you are too. As I said, I'm betting on Hit Show because of this show, Frankly Speaking. And on Monday, Dr. Dale Wexel will be our guest. He's going to talk about the Rotary Club and their online auction, which started this week, but it runs next week as well. So we'll talk to him about all the details there. Have a great weekend, everyone. Good luck if you do decide to bet the Belmont. And we'll be back bright and early Monday morning starting at 7. I look forward to it already. Have a great weekend. Hi, I'm Frank Acom. Thanks for checking out our YouTube page. We'll be uploading each edition of Frankly Speaking 1 week after the original air date. So, let me remind you to watch the live version of Frankly Speaking, weekday mornings starting at 7, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox.